This is what my payday routine looks like. That's right, guys. This isn't a video for finance nerds who want to be on an Excel spreadsheet all day. This is for people who want a realistic approach to managing their money so they can do other things in life. You know, the stuff you're actually passionate about. Okay, let's go back. Let me tell you everything that went into simplifying my paycheck routine to get to this level. There are going to be 4 phases I cover in this video, and this first phase is the biggest one because it's the most important. So don't skip this, and I know you're trying to scroll down to see if there's a timestamp you can click to. Stay right here. Phase 1, prioritize. The first thing I do when I get paid is to decide on what my priority is. And just so you know, right now my priorities are to save for a down payment on a house and to invest at least 15% of my income. But what about you? How do you decide on what your priority is? This might be a tough question to answer because there is so much advice online about what you need to be doing right now with your money. It's like an information overload. Am I supposed to be paying off debts, or do I invest in my Roth IRA? Am I supposed to buy real estate, start a business? I don't know. Do I just do all these things at the same time? So allow me, as your financial coach right now, to be a filter for all of this information. I'm gonna give you 3 different financial situations that you are very likely to fall into, and I'm gonna suggest the 1 or 2 goals you need to prioritize depending on which situation you're in. And of course, if you need this disclaimer, what I'm sharing here isn't just a one-size-fits-all method, but this is generally what I've recommended to people whom I've coached. Situation number 1, you have high-interest debt like credit cards or personal loans. Here's what your first priority should be, and it's probably not what you're expecting. Priority number 1 should be to save up a small emergency fund. And yeah, I bet you thought I was gonna say to pay off the debt right away, but let me tell you why a small emergency fund is actually gonna be your first step. Imagine you did go straight into paying off your credit card with $0 saved up. And then one day you're driving to work, and one of your tires explodes, and the next thing you know, you're using the same credit card to buy some new tires. That's why before you just jump into trying to pay off all your debt and throwing your money there, you should have at least $1,000 in your first small emergency fund. Or if you're a family of 4, maybe have $3,000 to $4,000. I don't care, but set a goal for yourself and achieve that first, because you don't want to have to go deeper into debt if a small emergency happens. Once that's done, you can move on to priority number 2. Paying off all that debt using the debt snowball. And when I say debt snowball, it's just a method for paying off your debts. There's also another popular method called the debt avalanche. I'm gonna put a card on this video and some links in the description to point you to some great videos that'll describe the difference between a debt snowball and a debt avalanche, and then you can choose which one sounds better for you. I personally have preferred the debt snowball. It's what's helped a lot of my clients pay off their debt quicker because it's based off of human behavior and not around the math. Because if we were really doing math here, all right, and actually sticking to it, we wouldn't be in debt in the first place. But now let's move on to situation number 2. People who are out of debt with little saved or invested. Or maybe you just have a student loan sitting around at an interest rate of 5 to 6%. Honestly, if I was someone with a student loan or maybe a very low interest car loan, I would continue to prioritize just paying off all that debt. And of course, those lower interest debts are not as urgent as a credit card debt, but just imagine the feeling of not owing anybody anything outside of a house. But then just being able to start building your wealth from there, from a totally clean slate, you're not in the hole in any way. But aside from that, if you do find yourself in this second group of people, I know what it feels like. I was literally there a couple years ago. At the time, the main priority for my paycheck routine was to save up a full emergency fund. And when you do that, this is where life starts to get interesting. When you save up a full emergency fund, this is what will get you out of the rat race. You will literally remove yourself from the paycheck to paycheck cycle that 78% of Americans are living in. And here's what a full emergency fund looks like. It's when you have 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved up. And to describe what living expenses are, this is everything you need to spend in a month to maintain just your basic necessities. For example, if you go through your bank statements this past month, sounded like Mike Tyson out here. Okay, for example, if you do go through your bank statements this past month and see you spent $2,500 on rent and utilities, maybe $700 a month on groceries, $500 a month on insurance, and $300 a month on transportation, all those needs, not wants, equal $4,000 a month to survive. So your full emergency fund should be 3 to 6 times that amount. or between $12,000 to $24,000. But imagine seeing that figure in your bank account. When my wife and I hit $20,000 in our emergency fund, which was over 6 months of our living expenses, we just felt this weight lifted off of our shoulders. We weren't living in fear of the next car repair or the next medical bill or the next job loss. And we also had way more options in life. For example, if we hated our job, we had the breathing room to just quit and look for something better. Now let's look at situation 3. Those people who are now looking to invest for the future. Here are some of the priorities you should consider. I'm gonna put them in an order that I would prefer. Of course, you don't have to follow this depending on your situation. Get that full 401k employer match. Crack open a Roth IRA. Max out the 401k. Put money into an HSA and invest through individual taxable brokerage accounts. And the thing is, when you're in this situation, you can focus on multiple priorities all at the same time. You could even focus on other goals like saving up for a house, moving, traveling, growing a business, all that. But now that we have our priorities in order and you got 1 to 2 goals in mind, now it's time to create the action plan. Phase 2, budget. Or if you're Ramit Sethi and you don't like to call it a budget, you can always rebrand and call it your intentional spending plan or conscious spending plan, which is just the same thing as a budget. So let me first tell you what a budget is not. A budget is not an expense tracker. You don't just go through all your transactions from the last month, record them somewhere on a spreadsheet or on an app and call that your budget. That's like saying your plan to lose weight is just by checking your weight. It's not gonna do anything but make you feel bad. A budget is also not just trying to save money in your mind. I always ask people, hey, do you budget? And then they'll say yes. And then I ask them, what does that look like? And then they just say, well, when I go shopping, I just tell myself I have $100 to spend and I should try not to go over that amount. That's a good thing to do, but that is still not a budget. A budget is a written plan for where you want your money to go each month. Personally, I create my budget using the EveryDollar app. But no matter who you are, you should always create your budget at the beginning of the month. And I start off by writing down how much I'm expected to earn this upcoming month. And then I'll decide where every dollar of that income I make is going to go. So real life example, with our combined income of $8,000 a month, we'll plan on using $2,000 of that on rent, $450 of that on groceries, $1,100 of that going into our retirement accounts, and $2,500 of that to save towards our future house down payments. And we'll continue to plan out every dollar of that income until there are $0 left over. So now we have a very intentional plan on where our income is going to go when we get paid. Having $0 left over in our budget is super important because that means that there is nothing unaccounted for. My wife and I know exactly how much we're going to save, we know exactly how much we're going to spend, and we know exactly how much we're going to invest from that $8,000. But let me make this clear. This budget is not going to be the same forever. In fact, we reevaluate our budget each and every month. We don't make a lot of changes, but when it comes to months like November and December, I may have to adjust the budget a little bit to allow for more travel. Or if I do know I'm getting paid more this month, then I need to create a plan for where that extra money is going to go. But honestly, once your plan is made for the month, the only next step is to just stay accountable to that budget, and you do this by tracking. Phase 3, track. I promise you, some of the numbers you make up for your budget for the first time are going to be completely off. Maybe you thought you spent $400 on groceries and then you find out you actually spend $600 on groceries. That's okay, okay? Be patient with yourself. Maybe next month you can adjust your budget to allow for more grocery spending, or you might need to find ways to lower your grocery bill. You also might realize on your budget that maybe you thought you were gonna spend $200 a month on personal items, but turns out you usually only spend around $80 a month. Then you can make adjustments in the next month. So these little discrepancies and mistakes are gonna happen, and I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. It usually takes the average person 3 months until their budget is actually realistic to what they really spend. So just give yourself some grace because it's not gonna be perfect at all starting off. A question I had when it came to trying to track my spending is, where do I record all of these transactions throughout the month? Obviously, your bank app might try to track your expenses for you, or maybe you have another tool like NerdWallet. But now, thankfully, because I pay for EveryDollar premium, it's around $11 a month if you pay for the whole year, I have all my bank accounts synced up to the app. So now all the transactions I make on those bank accounts are going to show up on my EveryDollar app automatically. And thankfully, they don't try to just sort out your transactions for you, all right? They show you the transactions, but you still need to categorize them properly. So at least once a week, I'll open up the EveryDollar app and just drag and drop where each transaction needs to go. And it's super nice too, because it shows me how much money I have left to spend in each category as I'm going through the month. So automating the right things is really important when it comes to managing your money. That's why it is our last phase. Phase 4, automate. All right, finally, in order to make my paycheck routine as short and simple as possible, like at the start of this video, I had to make sure I automated my savings and investments. When we were saving for our emergency fund, we opened up a separate high yield savings account in an online bank called CIT Bank. And to make sure we always saved at the beginning of each month, we made the process as easy as possible. Because obviously, you're more likely to save money if you remove all the obstacles between you and saving. That would be super annoying to try to remember every time you got paid to log into your bank account and to manually transfer money from your checking into your high yield savings account. So in order to remove that friction for us, we just logged into our CIT bank account and connected our checking account, which is with Chase. Then on the CIT bank website, we set up an automatic transfer to move $2,000 a month from our checking account into our CIT savings account. And we always put that auto transfer on the first of the month. So now we know we're always paying ourselves first. And if you get paid bi-weekly, maybe set up those auto transfers on the same exact day you get paid. So now you'll be removing that temptation to overspend by making sure you send off some of that money from your paycheck into your online savings account on literally the first day that paycheck hits. And we also use the same process with our investments as well. Right now, I don't work for a company with a 401k, so at the moment, I just send my money straight to my Roth IRA, which I have with Fidelity. And from there, let's say I transferred $500 into my Roth IRA, I'll set up an automation in the Roth IRA itself to automatically buy mutual funds and index funds in that same $500 amount. And to keep it real with you guys, I usually buy a mix of FBGRX, which is the Fidelity Blue Chip Growth Fund, and then FXAIX, which is the Fidelity 500 Index Fund. This is just me, of course. I would consult a financial professional to help you find funds that work for you. And now, after those automated savings and automated investments happen, I know what's left in my checking account is going to now be spent on the things that I prioritized. I can use that money in my checking to now buy food, to pay for trips, and just enjoy life. Oh, and of course, if you are in debt, make sure to set up those automatic payments to go towards your debt as well. So that's my paycheck routine. I'll be in the comments for the next week to answer any questions. And if you want to talk about your personal situation, I do jump on a live call every week in my Facebook group, the Frugal Rich Community. Okay, but now that you know my process for saving and investing money, you gotta have some margin in your life to be able to do that. And one of the quickest ways is to start cutting expenses. That's why I did make a fun video about some things that I have stopped buying, and you might be able to get some ideas there too. Give it a click, and I'll see you guys over there.